Greetings and salutations, everybody. It is Richard Harris for the Surf and Sales podcast here with my co-founder, Mr. Scott Leese, who just came up with the best quote ever. Scott, how are you doing? And then maybe you should tell people about this fantastic quote.
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm a little bit stressed right now, scrambling for my overseas adventure.
Where are you headed?
Quote,
are you going to Spain?
Well, it's more than Spain, but yes, going to Spain, Gibraltar, Morocco, Montreal.
Never traveled
Canada.
with me. You never travel with me. I'm so disappointed.
I guess 7-8 years of Costa Rica trips doesn't count, I guess.
No, not at all. That's nothing.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
That's business. That's business.
Yeah. You want to hear the quote? I already forgot the quote, but it's something to the effect of I'm a hard maybe millionaire.
Exactly.
Or I'm a millionaire off of hard maybes. It's like it's like the verbal board. It's like people saying, not this year, but next year for sure.
Right.
Or,
right.
Can't sign this month, but next month hit me up, Richard.
Yes.
We're all hard maybe millionaires.
Absolutely. I love it. So let's get to the important stuff. And because people don't necessarily hear us, want to introduce our good friend, Matt Wolach, who is a SaaS investor, founder, innovator, just sales coach, leadership coach, all those kind of coaching. I assume there's some life coaching in there too, Matt. So Matt, how are you? Feel free to introduce yourself, name your company, what you're focusing on these days, just so people have a context of who you are.
Sure thing. Yeah, Richard, I'm super good. Thanks for having me, Richard and Scott. This is awesome. I am really jealous about not being able to go to Costa Rica in November with you guys. Sounds amazing. And the amazing quote Scott came up with came because I gave him a hard maybe for next year. So that's on me. Totally get that. I would hate hearing that myself.
So, I like that he outed himself, which I respect.
Indeed. And in fairness, he gets a 50% hall pass, at least from me, because he can't come because he's going to some Bronco home games. And as a big Bronco fan, that's helpful. And Scott, I'm going to throw this at you. You missed the fact that he went to school in upstate New York. So he has a lot of friends who are Bills fans. And I said that you're you live off the disappointing blood of a vampire of Buffalo Bills suffering, right?
Yeah,
every cut goes deep, and the only option you have is to just live off that, blood that keeps coming out every year, which is probably fairly gross. But anyway.
Yeah, those poor Bills fans. We keep hoping, as Bronco fans, we keep hoping you beat the Chiefs for us, but it doesn't work out.
No, not at all. So, but we're not here to talk about football. We are here to talk about sales. We are here to talk about leadership. Yep. Although we could do it. We are here to talk about challenges people are having. So what are you seeing these days in the world? Like what are people coming to you for? It is June of 2024, just so people have context. What are people struggling with?
My big thing that people keep coming to me for is simply the bottom of funnel closing process. It seems like people have started to figure out in many cases, how can we generate leads? How can we generate some buzz, create some interest? How can we get people at least to start to look at us, our pipeline?
Is that bottom of the funnel, or that sounds like top of the funnel?
No, I'm focused more on bottom. Yeah, I mean, I'm focused more on how do we get them over the line? How do we get them signed? So people are coming to me saying, okay, we've got some leads. We've done a good job of generating some interest, but we're having these conversations and they go nowhere. People say, hey, it seems like this is a good thing, or I like your product. I'm very focused on software. So looks like you got a good tool here. Thanks for showing it. And then nothing. They ghost you and they go away and you never hear from them again.
So what you're telling me is you're trying to solve the being a maybe millionaire conversation that your clients are having that we started the show with. Is that it?
Very true. That whole this was nice, we'll think about it, is one of the worst things you can hear. So absolutely, we're solving that.
So give some advice. So I'm a sales rep or I'm a sales leader, and I'm doing all I can, and because I have a belief of why that's happening, or several reasons, but what are the reasons your clients are telling you their prospects are giving them all these maybes?
I mean, the number one reason, it's so funny when people don't have a strong sales background and don't understand a lot of the dynamics of what makes a good sales conversation. they don't realize that that closing actually starts much, much earlier. And Richard came onto my podcast. Richard talked about this exact same thing on my show, but a lot of them are what we call feature dumping, or what I call vomiting your product all over your prospect. And they come and they say, hey, I just want to see what you got. So you say, okay, look at this thing and look at that thing and look at that. And you never truly understand what they actually care about. And maybe even more so, the prospect never fully understands their own problem to a deep enough level. And not enough sales reps are skilled enough or understand the techniques available to them to be able to unearth that pain, to be able to get the buyer to emotionally feel that pain. And it's really killing their deals.
Yeah. And it's systemic, meaning what I mean by that is I'll talk to like a founder, and it's like a 3-person company so far, and they have that sales problem. Then I'll go talk to a company of 100 people, and I'm listening to them pitch, and they're pitching that same way that's problematic. And then I go talk to this other company that has thousands of employees, and I'm like, how the hell did you get to thousands of employees selling this way? Oh, how does this keep happening when the better way, the right advice is out there?
That's a great question. Yeah, Scott, I love that you brought that up, because a lot of my background is in small business. And I've had several startups. I've been fortunate enough to have some exits from those startups, but it's really been focused on that smaller end of the world. And I talk to some clients who come to me, like you said, they have hundreds of people and they're struggling. You having the same sales issues, doing things that you're like, these are like quote unquote expert salespeople that have been doing this for a while, and they're still making these mistakes. I couldn't, it was really kind of a shock to me that these quote unquote bigger companies, how did they get there? How did they get to that point if this is it? And really what I've come up with, Scott, is I don't think many people truly understand this. And also they don't implement it well or pass it off from maybe the early leaders. Because sometimes I see some of the early leaders figure it out, they start to implement it, but getting to that next person and then the next person, and especially as a company scales, I have I would say it's not a theory. I think it's a fact. Big companies are terrible at sales. Like the further away it gets from the early leaders, the harder it is for them to maintain that same level of care. By the way, just to take that to the nth degree, I had to talk to Facebook. That is one of your worst experiences ever, trying to talk to people at Facebook. It's like, have you guys ever heard of Facebook even? Like, it's crazy. And so the bigger the company, it gets so hard to maintain that capability.
And what is it? Is it a culture thing? Sorry. Is it a culture thing at a big company like that? Or is it nobody wants to take accountability?
I think there's that. I think that sometimes also that might be it, the accountability. You don't empower your employees when you get bigger. You don't feel like,
I think
maybe
you
it's
get
because you grew
lazy.
fast.
Lazy for sure. Listen, Matt and Richard and Scott start a company today. Okay. Nobody knows who we are. There's no branding or anything like this, right? We have to sell our ass off. We have to do it the right way, diligently. You go to a company like Facebook, and you're like, what's up, Matt? This is Scott from Facebook. And you get lazy and you think that the brand is going to do the selling for you, or the product is so well known and so amazing that it's doing the selling for you. Therefore, you start to skip steps and you get lazy with it. That's what I think.
I literally did a YouTube about that exact same thing, Scott, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And what I've found from talking with these companies is the best products have the worst sales because it's too easy. You're lazy. Like people come in, you don't do everything right, but they're like, yeah, it's a really good product. I'm going to sign up. Or I've heard from my friend, it's amazing, so I'll just do it. And the problem is that those other products that are kind of coming up the ranks, that are kind of growing and learning, and guess what? Especially in software, things change fast and they can get better and they can improve. And all of a sudden, now their product's better, but their sales team has gone through the grind of not having the best product. So they know how to do these things. They know how to get a buyer to feel really emotional about their problem. And they know how to get that deal to happen quickly. And so now you don't have the best product and you don't have the best sales team. And that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
How much do you buy into the macroeconomic excuse? Well, the sales cycles are getting longer and blah, 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 blah. Or, let me rephrase the question. there's always a piece of that, the economy, when the economy's bad. How much of that is 80% of the excuse now, when in fact it's maybe 25 or 30%?
Yeah, I'm with you, Richard. I hate blaming the macro. Like I have so many clients that during bad times, during the middle of COVID, we're crushing it. And it's you can blame the macro, but as soon as you start getting into that mindset, then you're not going to be focusing on how can I get better? How can I improve what we're doing? How can I grow this business? Because you're just thinking, well, it's not going to work. Whatever I do is not going to work because we're in a bad time right now. I don't like thinking about that. I want to be constantly hustling, constantly getting people on the phone and closing deals.
Love it. Love it. So let's just sort of back up. Like, were you always the entrepreneur as a kid? Like, where did all this come from for you? You know,
I mean, yes, I did have some of those tendencies early on for sure. And I've always been like leaders on my sports teams growing up. I think the big thing for me is I played sports, I followed sports, super competitive. So a lot of times when you talk to a salesperson, I love talking to people who want to win and they just want to be the best, to beat the competition. That's something for me that was always a big driver. And as I got into software and started to have my own companies and started to realize I just want to accelerate, to get ahead, to be number one in the market. I want to win. And it's less about, I need to make a lot of money. It's more about that competition side. And that's kind of a motivator for me that's kept me going.
Yeah. So do you
hold on,
losing?
Richard,
No, stop. I got one last question and then you can speak up. Like, this is, you asked me to start the show, so now I'm on fire. So fuck off. By the way, Kathy told me I'm dropping the F-bomb too much. She's like, you're talking.
Is she listening to the episode or just hearing you from the other room?
Hearing you from the other room.
That doesn't count then. That doesn't do us any good. We need the download.
So, so Matt, do you hate losing more than you like winning?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that was a realization for me when the Broncos won their first championships. Sorry, Scott. Because once they won, by the way, I was at the game, Super Bowl 32 in San Diego in the 90s. And the win was almost more of a relief. Like, oh, we didn't lose. We don't have to go through that pain of losing. We won. And it was, of course, there was joy. Of course, there was exuberance. It was, but I did definitely feel the relief. And it's the same in sales. I'm more glad that they didn't leave us or ghost us or go to the competition than I am, yay, we won a deal. And it's kind of a weird thing, but that's the way it is. Losing hurts. And by the way, once I learned that, I was able to use that in my sales. Now we can get people to think about what are you losing by not having this tool instead of selling the positive. Here's the things you can gain by selling this tool or having
nobody
this tool,
cares about the gain. That's the thing that I think people get wrong. Everybody's like, don't scare me, don't do this fear kind of stuff, just show me the good stuff, the carrot only, not the stick. But the reality is human beings are more motivated by what they stand to lose than what they stand to gain. If we had some fun competition right now and we said to people, hey, go do this and we'll give you $1 million, right? But you got to do it for like 30 days straight. Very few people would complete that mission. But if we flipped it and had this like extreme adverse impact, if you didn't do it, all of a sudden everybody's finishing it, right?
Yeah.
And everybody, when they're pitching and selling, is like, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. It's really like, not doing something is going to cause this. Doing the wrong thing is going to cause that impact. All of these things are at risk. That's what moves people to take action, in my opinion.
So true. And you just invented Squid Games, some adverse impact to not doing
That was,
I love that. We should create a SAS Squiddies. SAS Squiddies.
Oh my God. I can't believe we never thought about that as
I love it.
Sales contest. Hey,
you close this deal or we're going to shoot you.
Right.
That's like some North Korean sales.
Yeah. North Korean call center, boiler room. Yeah. I want to go back to something you were talking about because you were talking about playing sports and competition and all this. And I was sitting here thinking, man, if Matt's not careful, he's going to get canceled real quick. Because all of a sudden, you're not allowed to be like, I was an athlete and I was a competitor and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, we don't need that kind of environment anymore. Those type of people, is not what sales is all about anymore. How do you feel when you hear that kind of stuff? Because I'm like you. I played 2 sports in college. I grew up this way, playing every sport under the sun. I am the most competitive person that you'll meet. I can't stand losing. Don't care what it is. And I'm like, man, I better keep my mouth shut about this kind of thing these days, because all of a sudden, all the voices out there are saying some different things. So I'm curious what your take on that kind of stuff is.
I've never felt beholden to cancel culture or anything like that. I say what I feel, and that's kind of the way it's going to go. A lot of my clients love that I have that attitude, and I help them incorporate that. One of the ways that I think about with my own teams, if I look back to building my software sales teams, the way I engendered that competition within the team was I liked it as if, I'm a big golfer, as if we're a golfer group. And when you're a golfer, you want to beat your buddies in the group. But if their ball goes into the woods, you go help them, and you go help them find the ball. And if their swing looks a little off, like your elbow kind of looks a little inside, whatever it is. So you want to win, but you're also helping. And I kind of tried to create that atmosphere amongst my teams where we're going to show you what the scoreboard looks like. You're going to know who's on top and who's below. But we also expect that if you uncover something that you say to a prospect and it sounds amazing, they love it, it resonates with them, share that with the group. Let's let the tide rise all boats, but we still want to make sure that you want to win. So it's definitely an interesting thing.
I used to describe that as, I want to compete against you and I want to beat you, but I want to beat you 100-99. I'm not trying to beat you like 100-1. That does nothing for me. I don't feel any better about myself. You're not getting any better, right? Like if you and I have some sort of goal to, make X amount this year, I want to both of us get there, but I want to beat you by $1. No matter what. Like, yeah. So I'm on the same page.
So
go ahead,
I
Richard.
just hope, I just got to write this down. Memo to self: do not play golf with Matt. It sounds like he's really, really good. So,
I don't know about really good. I enjoy it a lot, but living in Arizona gives me some help having year-round golf.
Don't you just love frustrating yourself every day on the golf course? I mean, that's really what it's about.
Pain. It's pain. It really is.
It's like being a Buffalo Bills fan times 10.
I really walked into the hornet's nest today.
Poor Scott.
Yeah, tell you what.
Richard is wound up. I've had nothing to eat and no coffee, so who knows? But
but it's interesting because I've had I don't know how I realized that was the culture that would be good for a sales team, but it worked. Our sales team was amazing. They were helping each other. They were all trying to be that top guy at 100, but they were also trying to bring everybody else along at the 99. And I had sales reps say, "Hey, I've been a part of several sales teams. This is the best dynamic I've ever seen."
So it's tricky though if you start to grow the team or you inherit people on the team who are like, "I'm not competitive."
Yeah. I was going to ask about culture. How do you?
I'm just sitting there with that. It's like, I'm not competitive.
How do you build this culture that's competitive but doesn't turn toxic? I think that's the cancel part, right? You can build a competitive culture. You just can't make it toxic, and it can't be a bro fest, right? So
no.
What is your approach to that?
So I like rewarding people when I see good things happening and doing it publicly. So if I have a rep or, I believe in a sales team as a whole team. You've got the operations people, you've got some of the assistants that are helping drive, some of the other tasks. And I want all of those people to be competitive. So Scott, if you are asking that question, somebody said that, they're not a good fit for the sales team. Like I want them to feel like as a team, we need to beat the competition. We need to be excited when we win deals against the competition, whoever it is on the team, and that we're a team. And so how do I engender that culture? Well, whenever somebody does something well, whether they close a deal themselves or they help someone else on the team do something well, or they shared something that somebody else won with, I glorify that. And I say, Richard shared with Scott a tactic that Scott went and used and crushed it. So Richard, you're amazing. Everybody celebrate Richard, yada, yada. That's something I want everybody to see, that we really boost people up when they do something well, like sharing successes with the team.
I love that. I know having worked with Scott and having worked for Scott, Scott is a big advocate and executioner of that style. He was always about
that's
knowing your pitch and finding that one spot that you would change, get you to ask you why you changed it. Would always turn out, well, I thought I could go faster. I got lazy, right? That was the answer. But then he'd say, okay, go listen to Henry, or, go listen to Colby and how she says it. And then really advocating that cross communication of success stories. So I love that. I really like that.
Yeah. And also, to the point of bro culture, I think that's obviously a thing that people think about in software. Obviously lots of guys. In sales, lots of guys. They just kind of lean that way, and fewer females do. But I've had great women on my team who are amazing at sales, and they're very competitive, and they want to beat the guys almost more than the guys want to beat them. And it's not like they're not out there. They're there. And it's just a matter of me just finding the right fits. They're going to be great for the team.
So if you had a team right now and you're starting a team from scratch, how are you attacking your go-to-market motion differently today than you would have done 5-10 years ago?
I'm probably not.
You're not. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, because I think some of the dynamics for me, pendulum has swung pretty far, and I don't necessarily think that's important. I'm building a team. I want to find the best people. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what they're made of. I don't care what their background is even.
But tactically, I mean, more tactically, like what are we doing? How are we attacking this? Are you having everybody make 100 calls a day back like you did back in the day? Is it a silent sales floor where the only thing you can hear is people typing away? What channels are people?
Yeah, I love people on the phone. So
go on walk through a modern day sales floor real quick and tell me how many people you hear on the phone compared to how many people are typing away. So that's what I'm saying though. Like, if you were going to build one today, would you build it any differently? Not so much the structure of it, but just like tactically, the channels, the approach, the messaging.
The only thing I think about with that is I build it towards the market. So if the market is a great market for cold calls, we're calling. I don't think cold calling is dead. I have several clients who are crushing it with cold calling. I know several partners of mine who are doing great with cold calling. If the market's not great for cold calling, we're not calling. That's not a good thing. I've been in markets where cold calls don't do anything, and we've tried. But maybe you've got to figure out, if you talk about go to market, what is that thing that's going to hit with this market? What's going to, where are they living? Where are they going to be resonating with our message? And that's what I want to have happen. So it may not be the same thing that I did in the last company or the company before that. I want to make sure it fits for what we're doing in this market.
So how do you figure that out? Because I've never thought about it that way. So I think it's really, really smart. And is that we so often talk about go-to-market strategy, about finding the right, ICP and working on the pitch and figuring out the messages and the pain and, focusing on founder-led sales, if you're that early. How do you determine, like, at what point will you decide that I've done enough execution to realize that the best way to get in touch with this person is X, whether it's phone, LinkedIn, stuff? What's your litmus test?
Yeah. Conversations. So in my
podcast, how many though?
Yes.
50 minimum before you even start. So when you're talking about I'm trying this, I want to have conversations with potential ideal fit prospects before I even start selling. And those conversations would simply be, hey, we're thinking about this. We're looking at this type. Like if we started a company today, the three of us, like you mentioned, Scott, we need to go out and start talking to the market. We need to understand exactly what do they care about, what keeps them up at night, what do they hate, what are they looking forward to, what do they love, and really truly understand that persona and what they're after, to know not only, what do we need to build for them, but how do we get to them? Where do you live? Where do you guys hang out online? What do you do? Do you go to conferences? Do you do this? And that would help me understand our go-to-market motion, because now I know where these people are and where I'm going to be able to hit them best. I've had clients come to me and say, hey, I just heard what Brian shared in our session. I'm going to start doing that. I'm like, that's great for Brian. That is not a good thing for you. Your thing needs to be this over here, because your market, if you start doing that, they won't care. They won't even see it. You need to be focused on this. And so it's really, really important to make sure that whatever you're doing trying to lead gen fits with who you're trying to get.
Yeah. And people people want to test things and A/B test this and that. But what they end up doing is they end up over tinkering. They make like 4 calls, have 4 conversations, and they're like, that doesn't work. I got to try this other thing. They send like 8 emails and nobody replies. And they're like, email doesn't work for us. And they just keep tinkering, and you don't put in the body of work to have any like statistically significant data behind it. You know, you got to put in 1,000+ calls probably. You know, you got to have, you said 50, I would be like 100. I got to have like 100 conversations before I can make any kind of logical like deduction here in terms of what works and what isn't working or anything like that. And that straying off the path that works kills sellers and sales leaders.
And not just sales, marketing too. It's the same thing over there. I have so many people like, well, social posting doesn't work or SEO doesn't work. How long did you do it? Oh yeah, we wrote articles for 3 weeks straight. 3 weeks, dude. SEO, like 6 months is your minimum. It's probably a year.
And that's all going away too.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I think that too many people are not consistent enough or persistent enough with an initiative. And if they were, they'd be much better off.
What do you look for, and what do you coach people to look for in salespeople aside from this competitive piece? What are some of the X factors that you like? What does their background look like? Because you were talking earlier, like I agree with you 100%. I actually think women are more naturally gifted towards sales than men because they have a better job. They do a better job of listening, like they just do, you know. And
not only that, women actually scientifically have a better call acceptance rate, a better email acceptance rate, a better social social connection acceptance rate than men, especially going into certain circles, especially like some of my circles in the software world. You're targeting developers. They're not going to really talk to a guy. A woman talks to them, they're going to answer the phone.
Misogyny is live and thriving
for sure.
in sales.
For sure, it is.
And you should like don't kid yourself, people. Like
psychology.
If that offends you, well, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Turn off the podcast. Fuck off. You know, but Scott's just so excited that Richard's on rants today. I can tell.
Richard's on one.
He's gold.
But what are the others? But let's talk about skills. Let's talk about or personality things. Like I have a belief that teachers are really good at sales because they're very good at slowing stuff down, explaining it to a child mindset, which oftentimes that's what you've got to address at a business situation. Someone doesn't understand your value, so you have to slow it down. But who are some of your favorite people to recruit?
You know what's kind of interesting? I over the course of my career, I've had a shift on this, but I wish I would have known it earlier because I lived it myself. Some of my favorite people are customer service people, and here's why. It sounds weird because that doesn't seem like a sales dynamic. But what I've learned is that the best sellers are the best helpers. And Richard, you and I talked about this. People who just come on and like, oh, buy my thing because it's got this and this and this, don't do nearly as well as the person who said, hey, tell me about what you're struggling with. And I want to really understand like what's kept you back and why is that happening? They want to help that person. If we can focus on how we're going to help somebody and how we're going to solve all their challenges and get them to their goals, they're going to be much more likely to want to work with us. They're going to be much more likely to purchase our thing than just pushing a product on them. And so similarly, I want to find people who want to help, who want to get people to solve their problems, who want to feel that joy when somebody does solve the problem with your tool and they're able to say, hey, this was amazing. Thanks so much for getting this in my hands. Those are the people that I want to get onto my team. Yeah, they should be competitive as well, but they should be focused on helping and not focusing on them. I tell my clients, focus on their outcome, not on your outcome of this call. And when you can do that, the call is going to go much better.
It's interesting because I think people over-index on why do you like sales? Oh, I like helping people. And I came from a generation of like, well, that's a terrible attitude, right? like I'm not here to help people. I'm here to close business. And maybe that, and again, like I know where I was as a leader, as a salesperson, how I learned to shift away from that. But how do you find that difference? And I know Scott's got another question before that. How do you find that difference between someone who wants to overly help, which could be a great customer success person, versus they want to help and they still have the drive to go for the close?
I mean, I think of it this way. I first of all, you have to be confident in your product. Whatever you're selling, if you don't believe in it, if you don't think it's great, if you don't think it's going to help, get out or fix the product. Because if you don't believe in it, then it's not going to work. You have to have that belief for them to have the belief. Now, once you have that, then you think that if they're between you and the competition, then it's in their best interest to choose you because you have a great product. You have the best tool. You have the best service, whatever it is. And so you want to help them. And in order to help them, they need to choose your product. So it kind of combines that help need and the competition. You know, if they choose the other product, and I've had this feeling, I know when I've lost deals and I think they went to that product seriously, like they're going to hate that. Everybody that comes to that product from, or comes to us from that product, they talk about the terrible service. They can never get anybody on the phone. They talk about how it takes forever to do this or that. They're going to hate life. And I'm so sad for them that now they're going to go through that pain. But I also blame myself that I didn't do a good enough job of helping them understand why they need this tool versus that. So I think it's kind of, Richard, to answer your question, marrying the competition desire, but also making sure we can help them as much as possible.
That's the sweet spot that you're trying to solve for. You over-index too far on one or the other, gets dodgy real quick.
Totally agree. That's why sales isn't easy. That's why we have jobs, guys.
Right.
Oh,
we don't deal with maybes.
Has sales ever been easy? Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Listen, this is the part of the show where we usually flip things around a little bit and say, how can we be helpful to you? Do you have any questions for us? So fire away, man. How can we help you?
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Two amazing sales leaders right in front of me. So let me ask you, what do you guys feel? The shift in the past few years in the culture and the dynamics, how has that changed our sales motion?
So
I have a couple of thoughts. Or you want to go first, Scott?
Yeah, I'll go first. You hog the mic most of this whole episode, so let me scoot you out of the way for a minute.
Wait, before you say something, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the most immediate change that comes to mind of everything that has happened is the shift towards remote workforce and salespeople and sales teams predominantly working remotely. Even if it's a hybrid situation now, you're still trying to learn remotely. And I'm a big fan of remote work. I can't fathom going back into the office ever. But I am very glad I didn't get into sales coming up and having to sit at home by myself I was 27 when I got started in sales. I didn't know anybody. There was no network. There was no podcast, nothing. There is 0% chance that I would have succeeded. I think I only succeeded because I was around a bunch of other people and could learn through osmosis or steal their kind of mojo. Is literally something I used to think about. Matt closes a deal, I'm going to go give him a high five just so his like positive energy can rub off on me. And all of that immersive kind of experience, that's the biggest of all the changes in the last 5 years to me over AI. This is the biggest change to me, is salespeople now operate on their own predominantly. And sales leaders are having to learn how to manage people in a distributed fashion. And they can't put the same amount of time and energy and effort into them so far. The tools and tactics to get really good at this stuff have not caught up to the need. And there's very few organizations that have pulled it off and done it really, really well. If you're a veteran, fine. You don't need it as much. Mm-hmm. If you're junior, that's pretty hard, man. Imagine building a entry-level sales org right now of full cycle salespeople, or imagine building a fully remote distributed SDR team right now of 23-year-olds who just graduated. That's tough. So that's the biggest shift for me of anything. And I do not think that the industry has done a good job of arming people to be successful still in this kind of environment.
I mean, I echo that. You're so right about how there's just an energy of a team when you're all together and somebody does something great, or you can kind of feel when things aren't good and you got to pull together and make it happen. And I think that that's huge. But even like outside of quote unquote the office, that team goes out on a dinner because you celebrate an amazing month or a quarter, or you go out to do race carts, and because you're just celebrating having a team outing, the bonding that happens, or just even like after a bad day, you go to happy hour with a couple people on the team, and that
See that
creates a dynamic that's so strong.
It does, but even I'll play devil's advocate and just say like, well, I don't need the bonding because 20 somethings do not socialize the same way that we socialized when we were 20 something. They just don't. They interact with and experience the world in a very different way. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that bonding camaraderie part doesn't matter so much. It's all these little moments, though. Richard calls them the in-between moments. It's when you go-kart racing and people are talking about their deals and helping each other and talking about this thing and that thing, or venting about something and saying, you know what, I solved that this way. They're actually talking about work when they're doing these kind of bonding, camaraderie kind of things. And so that's peer coaching or mentorship, leader coaching. Those opportunities disappear predominantly in remote kind of environments. And listen, my opinion, the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going back. There's not going to be some return to office movement, in my opinion, whatsoever. You could try to force it, but there's no way. So we have got to figure out a way to empower people and get them to learn and succeed in this kind of environment. This is the biggest challenge to me in the last 5 years over everything else. Richard.
Totally agree.
Am I allowed to talk now?
Yeah. I left you at least like a minute.
All right. So I will yes and Scott everything that's said. The challenge I see is the same challenge that's even existed before this remote piece, which is nobody's teaching leaders how to be leaders. Nobody's teaching managers how to manage humans. There's no soft skills and development, right? You got people like me and Scott and, sort of the elders as we've hit that stage of our life where we never had to figure this stuff out. Like this didn't matter. And we also sucked at managing people for a long time, right? We used all the terrible things of
use the only thing you know back in the day.
Right, exactly. So, but nobody taught me how to actually manage a human. Nobody taught me, how to tell someone, which I had to do once, oh, they've got a body odor problem and it's affecting everybody. Like nobody taught me how to have that conversation. Nobody taught me how to be empathetic for someone's personal situation and not try to flip it into the, okay, well, I know you went to the hospital. Do you think you can take another call real quick? Nobody taught me that stuff. And it's even harder when they are remote. Right. So I think, this lack of teaching has existed forever. And now it's just a new issue that we don't know how to do. Because it's a much harder issue with this remote piece. So I agree with all of it.
It's very true. It's critical for people to be leaders, and they're just not finding out how.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say that I'm seeing today is, 2024 has just turned into 2023 part 2, right? Everybody got to the end of 23 thinking the economy is going to get better. Everybody was.
I don't know why people thought that.
Because they thought that because they thought the interest rates were going to start to get cut, which, by the way, is a quarter point, right? Like, I don't know that, that's, that it's just good news. That's basically, it was something that they could hang their hat on. And so everybody started smoking hopium on this.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Work. It's also an election year, and every election year in the US, things are terrible.
Yeah. Yes. And then the other piece is, aside from the, thinking the economy is going to get better, nobody has adjusted that the sales cycles aren't elongated. They're not taking longer. The sales cycle has just straight up adjusted, but our mindset has not. We have not adjusted our forecasting capabilities based on real data. We're just, again, smoking hopium that, the sales cycles will still get shorter, when in fact, you should build your revenue target around longer sales cycles. And when you can adjust, when the sales cycles actually adjust. But until then, stop thinking your old school 45-day sales cycle is going to keep working when in fact it's taking you 65 or 70 days.
Good point.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
So we flew by. Holy shit, this has been 48 minutes of this conversation. So Matt, you're like, I was texting Scott, like, this is a great episode because
he's good at this.
You're our guy.
It's almost like he's done it. It's almost like he's done it before.
Maybe once or twice.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, once or twice.
Once or twice.
And, you know, so we're super grateful for you to come on, and you know, we gladly accept your maybe for next year. You know, we'll, you know, as much as we hate it, we'll accept
hard
that.
Maybe.
The hard
maybe.
But thank you for coming on.
Say it was a great conversation. So I'll upgrade to a hard possibly.
All right, there you go.
How's that?
Why does that feel worse? That somehow feels
it does feel worse.
That's like winning the Super Bowl. But how can people get a hold of you, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, Matt Wolach, WOLACH. You can also go to mattwolach.com, and I've got giveaways like a scorecard where you can kind of plug in your numbers, and it gives you benchmarks of what you should be hitting and how well you're doing against it.
Right on.
That'll scare everybody. Nobody wants to know that. Nobody wants to see how hard it's going to be.
The right person will find it. And
yes, that's correct. Good call, Scott.
Right. All right. Thanks for joining us, Matt. We will see everybody next time on the next episode of the Surf and Sales podcast.
It was fun. Thanks, guys.